You're listening to The Mountain Spirit, a podcast of Christian Appalachian Project, where we explore the stories, voices, and change makers shaping Appalachia. Our guest today is Kari Gunter-Seymour, a ninth generation Appalachian and the immediate past Poet Laureate of Ohio. Her award-winning books include Dirt Songs from 2024, Alone in the House of My Heart from 2022, and A Place So Deep Inside America, It Can't Be Seen from 2020. It is really a pleasure to have you on the show today. Welcome, Kari.
Thank you, Tina. I'm just very honored to be here.
Well, I am really thrilled about sharing this conversation with our audience. And so why don't you just share with us maybe what some of your early experiences, how that shaped your sense of place and how that shows up in your writing?
Well, I was one of those kids that just couldn't quite understand where I fit in. I was raised pretty rural, even though we lived in a small village in Amesville, Ohio. The majority of my time was spent on my grandparents' farm, which was just outside of town. And so I took on a lot of their ways. You know, my grandparents who, were full-time sustainable farmers. And so I always felt weird around people. My ways were very different. And I knew they were country ways, but that didn't seem quite it either. And I went through a large part of my life not really understanding that. And then happened to go to the Heinemann Settlement School Writers Workshop. Yeah. And I see you nodding your head because that's all you have to say lots of times, because I'm one of those people that kind of got born again with the understanding that you're Appalachian and you did have a very different upbringing and you do have very different ways, and they're gorgeous. They're wonderful. They're honorable. You have a wonderful set of morals. You believe in community. You believe in, a higher power. You believe in the power of the land. Yeah. And these are things that a lot of people look at you and say, oh, that's very nice. I'm so happy for you. But they don't necessarily understand it. But once I could understand that, and once I realized where I fit in, and then I had these wonderful people who were telling me, we need your voice. People need to hear about Appalachia because we are not undereducated, undergroomed, overfed, over anything. We are normal human beings, and we have so much to offer. And a lot of us remember some of the old ways, which are so valuable and are coming back. We have young people who are actually studying the signs of when to plant and when to harvest, and getting back into agriculture and wanting to do that for a living. We haven't had that in a couple of generations. My own and my parents are an example of that. My grandparents ended up selling the farm because my parents didn't want it, and I wasn't old enough, nor did I have the inclination to want it at that time. Silly me. But all those needs, that need every spring to get my hands in the earth the moment that I can, and love having those dirty fingernails and the back that's just hurting so bad from digging in the soil. All that is inside me. That's not something that I came up with. It is something that came to me through the generations, and knowing that just placed me on the planet in a place and gave me the roots I needed to get through this difficult life.
Yeah. Well, I am really interested then in talking about some of your writing and how that informed the books that you've written. But before we get to your actual writing, you recently served, as we said, you're the immediate past Poet Laureate of Ohio. So when you look back at in that role in your tenure, what do you think, how did that influence how you think about poetry's public role?
Oh, when COVID hit and everybody was in lockdown and there were a whole lot of different ideals and strategies being tossed around and people were very confused and very scared, they turned to the poets. They turned to the poets because we can't help ourselves. We just blab the truth. We blab it. And so there was a renaissance, I think, of poetry during that time of lockdown because people wanted they wanted good sound words. They didn't want it to be flowery necessarily, poetic maybe, but they just wanted the truth tellers. And I'm not excluding all other writers, don't get me wrong, but I do think there was a renaissance of poetry. And as Appalachians, we know that for many generations, in fact, from the beginning, we have been categorized and stereotyped and minoritized for being Appalachian. A lot of that is like, I have a bit of twang in my voice, even all the way up here in Ohio, Yeah. And I spent a lot of years trying to get rid of that and tried to learn to talk like a normal person. Mm-hmm. And then I realized that's not a normal person, and that doesn't sound like a normal person talking, and I'm going to talk how I talk. And so that couldn't help but influence my writing, being encouraged during the lockdown to do so, and then becoming the laureate right in the middle of all that. Yeah. And I spent hours and hours on Zoom going all over the country talking about poetry. And the really wonderful thing was that I could preach the gospel of Appalachia everywhere I went to.
Yeah.
And it was a way to lift up the Appalachian region and our people and help people understand how we feel about the land and holding on to those old ways that do not interfere with proper growth and care of our planet. And that we still practice those, even if they're only in our own gardens, our small patches, and the way our morality and our sense of honor and our strong draw to community is so important to us. And even more so than anything else, family.
Yeah. And you mentioned getting those nails dirty and you just talked about having your patch of land. So your newest collection is actually called Dirt Songs, came out in 2024, as we mentioned. It has earned national recognition. So what was the inspiration behind that title, and how does the title sum up the work?
Well, to me, Dirt Songs from the Earth, that's the most obvious, of course, or, the fact that I'm rural and I write rural. I know rural, so I write what I know. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of people that are rural, maybe not Appalachian, but certainly rural and facing some of the same stereotypes simply for living as a rural person. And there is a poem in the book that talks about dirt songs. And that particular poem is about how we have taken indigenous lands and forced our brothers and sisters off their land. And that I want to stand up and say that I recognize that. And it bothers me. Sorry, I get really emotional. And so I talk about that, I sit down and I sing the dirt songs because I want not only myself to remember and my children to remember, but I want this country to remember on whose backs they are standing. Yeah, and the rest of the poems are really about me growing up in a very, very small village during a time when the rest of the country just really didn't care about us. And then going through different, stages of my life. And all the people that I hung out with, particularly girls,
Yeah. So it's sounds like your writing is very personal and sharing that experience and having your voice to tell those stories to a larger audience.
I would agree with that. But I will also say I take on tough topics. I tackle racism. I tackle domestic violence. I tackle war. I look at LGBTQ issues. You kind of name it. I try not to be afraid to talk about it. And I try to be careful not to insist people believe as I do. Uh-huh. I just really tried to give a little bit different look at things, from, again, my rural world, which growing up was very small. But I had great grandparents and I had great parents that, taught me this is how you behave.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of rare these days.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Your generosity has a direct and positive impact in the lives of people in need in Appalachia every day. It is the unwavering support of faithful friends like you that make this work possible. Many of our supporters are beginning to plan and envision what kind of legacy they want to leave to support the causes that are near and dear to their hearts. CAP is happy to provide a safe and easy experience for people to create a will and support CAP through non-cash gifts. Through our partnership with Free Will, CAP offers our donors the ability to create a will online and alter it at no charge. Our partnership with Free Will also includes their Smart Giving Suite, which allows donors to give through their IRA, donor advised funds, and stock online, in addition to creating a will for free. In recent years, Appalachia has faced unrelenting challenges, including the pandemic, inflation, and back-to-back natural disasters. You can make a life-changing impact and leave a legacy of hope in Appalachia. To learn more about non-cash giving opportunities, please visit christianapp.org/more ways to give.
So tell me about your book, Alone in the House of My Heart. What did you hope readers would carry away from that book for their own lives?
That's there's a lot in there too. In Alone in the House of My Heart, I take a look at rape and domestic violence. I take a really deep look into racism because during that time, this book was being created. I was the Poet Laureate of Athens, Ohio, and we were contacted by the Equal Justice Initiative, and they came to Athens, Ohio, because in the 1800s we had committed a lynching. And I cannot tell you what that did to me, because I thought, oh, I'm from Athens, Ohio. We're all progressive and cool, and, you can't touch this, And then to discover that my, my ancestors had committed, not maybe mine directly, but still my forefathers in where I live committed a lynching. And the Equal Justice Initiative comes to towns where this has happened, and they collect soil. They erect a marker at the location where, they plotted it out where this lynching had taken place. And our mayor asked me to write a poem, for the occasion and the acknowledgement. We're having a public acknowledgement of having committed this awful crime. And I thought, I can't write this poem. I'm this little white woman. What would I know about how someone, how people feel about this? And then I realized again, Kari, write what you know. And what I knew was the shame. What I knew was the shame, right? And so I wrote that poem asking forgiveness for our ignorance and our stupidity, and to pray. Just to pray that we can please keep moving forward and not move backwards. And so, this Alone in the House of My Heart really touches on a lot of things that were bothering me a lot, that were going on around me. And also, I have a poem in there that's titled, "Oh, You Woman of Appalachia," because, I was really getting a bit upset about, the stereotype continuing. And I wanted to say, you don't know us. But if you did, you would be so amazed. And, the same with a lot of things. And so, this book, it wasn't really preachy. It just stated some facts. About how we get all upset about the littlest things, then do the most horrible things in retaliation, when really what we need to do is sit down at the table with each other, share a meal.
Yeah.
I mean, we know how to do it, right? We know how to do it. So
have some conversations. Let's talk to each other. Absolutely. I love it. So could you share that point you mentioned of Appalachian women? I know that you do other work with Appalachian women, which we're going to talk about later, but could you share that point with us?
I love this poem because it's an ode to all of us. It's harder for women because especially during the time when Big Coal moved out in the 50s and everybody was left in such poverty, women really suffered because, they were still experiencing pregnancy and other really tough health issues, but there was no health care.
Right.
And so that's a time when they did lose their teeth. And, and granted, some people were barefoot because they had no shoes. Instead of making fun of people like that, should we not have compassion, Yeah. But anyway, this is, oh, you woman of Appalachia, how they work to keep you down, call you fat, shoeless, say you have no teeth. But you got teeth, plenty. Ask any city man thinking to park his fracking machines in the valley. And the earth responds, rewards you in petals, herbs, sweet potato vines. And yes, we know one good fiddle lick makes you forget tired or hungry. And yes, that is your voice, strong and true, front row of the choir come Sunday morning, slipping more than you ought in the donation box, because you cannot bear to think of any of your neighbors going without. Generation to generation, childhood to womanhood, failing crops and dying children, the mine siren's doom, your sorrows like echoes rippling through the holler, and entered with careful cursive in the family Bible. So when they call you soft, I say you are not soft. You are limestone. You are flint. You are mountain shine, feed sack proud. You are diamond.
I love it. Thank you. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
I love it. We're gonna ask you to read something, another piece as we go along too. So share with our listeners here. So another one of your books is called "A Place So Deep Inside America It Can't Be Seen." It offers a portrait of Appalachia from the inside. How do you navigate telling your personal story without letting outsider stereotypes define the framework of your storytelling?
I don't think I just write the truth.
Uh-huh.
And if it includes part of the stereotype, I simply embrace it. And then I try to help people twist that around and see the reality of it. And so instead of ignoring it, I just flat out embrace it. And then I just say, but had you ever thought of this instead?
Yeah. Right. Things didn't happen just without context.
Exactly.
So I think it is speaking that truth and helping people see the framework of how we ended up where we are.
Right, the scaffolding. And, it's not new. It has been since we landed in Virginia. My people came into Virginia. I mean, my people were colonizers. They lived in the area, Henrico, Virginia, which wasn't Jamestown, but I mean, it was a little bit later than that. Yeah. And, we were here from the very beginning, and yeah, it's nothing new for us to be treated this way. That's for sure. Yeah. But time's a wasting, folks. Yeah. Time's a wasting. We could be doing so much positive stuff.
Agreed. So one of the positive things, I'm going to use that as a segue. One of the positive things that you've done is founding of the Women of Appalachia Project. And you also edit Women Speak anthology series. What need did you see in starting those things, and what impact has the project had on artists and audiences in the area?
Well, the need came, we're beginning the 17th year of the Women of Appalachia Project. The anthology, this is the 11th anthology, because I didn't start doing an anthology right away because I thought this was a one-time thing. I went to Ohio University's Multicultural Center and said, hey, I'd like to pitch you the idea that Appalachian women are a minority and that, maybe we could have some space in your gallery for a little art show and a poetry reading. And Dr. Winsome Chanu was in charge of the gallery then, and she looked at my proposal. She agreed. She's been a great advocate for the project. And so we were allotted the gallery space for an art show, and she helped us put on a poetry reading during Women's History Month in March. Well, it was so well attended and people loved it so much they asked me to do it again the next year. And I thought, well, these were only Athens County women. What if I opened it up to contiguous counties? And so I did. And so this just kept happening. Mm-hmm. It went from contiguous counties to further contiguous counties to states. And, we've had hundreds of women come through the project. I partner with the Dairy Barn Arts Center. They do the fine art now. For many years, I trucked around fine art pieces all over West Virginia and Kentucky and Ohio, as well as, setting up venues for our poets and our storytellers and our singer-songwriters to perform. And so now I just concentrate on the anthology and setting up the venues. This year we'll go, we're in Tennessee, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, Ohio. We have folks interested in North Carolina, so I'm going to try to get there in the next year. But we just go roundabout, and we read our work from whatever anthology we have just published. So starting in March, we go through to the fall, just getting around and reading to people. Sometimes we're within Appalachia, sometimes we are not. But you'd be amazed at the number of people living in Appalachia whose roots have been, sort of faded out through the years. Mm-hmm. And they're just so thrilled to hear the work because they're like, oh my gosh, something in this just moved me. And I realized, oh my gosh, this is how my grandmother lived, or this is, and it's just such a refreshing thing. And it's like what happened to me going to Heinemann. I found myself, and they're finding themselves in the work. And then it's wonderful for outliers or outsiders to be able to hear the work and maybe have a better understanding and a more accurate gauge to make their opinions about Appalachia and Appalachian women. But we certainly don't. I mean, we have poems about men in our book. I mean, we don't exclude men. But this opportunity was, in my mind, needed to be for women because I was seeing a lot of Appalachian men rising to the top, and I was so happy for them. But that happens a lot in the world of literature, where men make their way through first, and then women. But now that's not the case. We have so many amazing, wonderful Appalachian women writers who are making their space, and it's just
their voices heard. Yes.
Yep.
So tell us about, you have so many different things. I want to hear about all of them. So we're going to squeeze in another one. Tell us about, I Thought I Heard a Cardinal Sing, Ohio's Appalachian Voices. How did that project come together?
So I was the Ohio Poet Laureate, and the Academy for American Poets has a program funded through the Mellon Foundation, a big chunk of money for laureates to do a project that involves their state or community. So I was a state laureate, so I needed to involve my whole state. If someone, for instance, my friend Joni McIntyre was up in Toledo, she would have been, challenged to include Toledo. My friend Ray McNeese, who was the laureate up in Cleveland, did do a beautiful book for Cleveland. But my challenge was to do a book about Ohio. And I saw this as another opportunity to put Appalachian Ohio on the map, because even people who live in Ohio don't realize a quarter of our state sits in Appalachia proper.
Wow, a quarter.
Yeah. And there are pockets of strong Appalachian communities throughout the state. So I decided my project was going to be an anthology, because that's something I know how to do, that was to involve Ohio Appalachian writers. It had to be poetry because it's the Academy of American Poets. So Appalachian poets, folks who knew Appalachians and wanted to write about them, folks who had Appalachian heritages and wanted to write about their heritage, people who wanted to write about Appalachian landmarks or Appalachian history. So I was able to include all of Ohio, but showcase Appalachia.
Yeah.
And it was a one-of-a-kind book. I could not find any other book that concentrated on Appalachian Ohio because we've been ignored for generations. Yeah. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. I feel a little bit like it's a legacy project for me because it really did allow me, and it opened a lot of eyes to the fact that, oh my gosh, and Ohio has a huge plethora of talented writers. I mean, it's almost obscene how many amazing, fabulous writers we have. And so this just really solidified the fact that, yes, and we have a huge base of Appalachian writers or folks who come from Appalachian people in Ohio as well. And I thought, it's Ohio. I've got to do something with the cardinal, of course. So I thought I heard a cardinal sing because we think of poetry as song. The really beautiful thing was I got the grant to do it, and then the Foundation for Appalachian Ohio kicked in, and they provided money for a copy of the anthology to be placed in every public library in Ohio and every Appalachian middle school and high school library.
Oh, wow.
So literally a couple thousand of these books were available to the public for free.
You can make this summer into a season of service and have a lifetime of impact on youth in Appalachia. Join us in the great outdoors by becoming a camp counselor at one of our 2 beautiful camps in eastern Kentucky. Room and board, stipend, travel reimbursement, and educational award are available. Apply today at christianapp.org/volunteer. That is christianapp.org/volunteer.
Let's talk a little bit about your poem, Go Joe. And so for people who may not be familiar, you had to give them a little bit of who Joe Burrows is and how this whole piece around food insecurity and then how it just took off.
Yeah, this was crazy. I was the Athens Poet Laureate, and Joe Burrow had been awarded the Heisman Trophy. And then he gave that amazing speech, which in the middle of, he decided to set aside time of his, he could have been bragging about himself or whatever, but instead he talked about coming from Athens County and how the food insecurity was several points below the national average, and how he actually had schoolmates who he watched suffer from hunger, and that even some of his teammates, had trouble finding enough food to eat. I myself, my son and I grew up in low-income housing. My son grew up in the projects in Athens County, Ohio, and I'm not ashamed to say that. So I know poverty. Again, you write what you know. And so Joe's friend Will Draybold set up a fundraiser on Facebook to raise money for our local food pantry as a way to kind of move that, kind of add on to this beautiful speech that Joe Burrow had given straight from his heart, no notes, no nothing, And Will made a statement. He had hoped to get maybe $1,000 or something. Well, before you knew it, they were over $500,000, I think, or close to. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I'm the Athens Poet Laureate. If I don't write a poem about Joe Burrow, I'm not going to be able to hold my head up in this town. So I did. I wrote this poem about the fact that he's hardly in the poem, but the point is that he was so selfless and giving that it impacted a whole bunch of people. And I thought, well, I'll just put it on my Facebook page, which at that time was the Athens County Poet Laureate. And I went to bed. Well, the Athens the Athens News picked it up and they published it. And then a woman who was working on Will Draybold's fundraiser saw it, and she put it on the fundraiser. And I woke up the next morning and 101,000 people had seen that poem. thousands of dollars had been donated because she said, this is fizzling out. We need to get people donating again. She put my poem up, and I'm not saying I wrote a poem that earned several $1,000s, just saying that people were moved by it. And again, that shows the power of poetry.
Yeah.
Don't give up, because you never know. That was just a poem I wrote thinking I wanted to praise Joe in some way for his selflessness, and also shine a light on poverty. And especially food insecurity. And lo and behold, social media, you just never know. And that was one time when it worked for the good.
Amen.
And there you go. And so that fund that they raised $500,000 over was taken up by the Foundation for Appalachian Ohio, and it just keeps compounding, and they keep feeding people and feeding people. They fund all kinds of projects that people have that go out and feed folks throughout the county and beyond.
That's amazing. Would you be able to share that poem with us?
I would. I'd love to. It kind of makes me a little bit sad because, part of this is really a true story of how my son and I lived, So, but I also like it because it says to people, you can get out of poverty. You can. It's called Go Joe. It's spelled Louisiana style. And this is for Joe Burrow. Until you fed your kids Kraft mac and cheese from the markdown bin at the dollar store for the 6th time in 2 weeks, made with water instead of milk, worried sick about what's happening to their insides, a dented can of carrots past the expiration date, a luxury. Until you've worked 2 jobs and still can't climb above the food stamp line, never mind proper heating or running water. And you've put your 6-year-old to bed hungry, again, wondering if there is any way you can take on a 3rd job and still see your kids. Until your daughter asks to pack her lunch because she's being made fun of for being subsidized. So in desperation, you take time off work to stand in the food pantry line in the cold, children in tow, only to be informed it was a rough week for the pantry too. Until you put your children on the school bus dressed in mended clothes from the new to you, size for children meant to be more filled out. And they're labeled white trash. And no amount of scrubbing can remove that stain. And dreams of college remain just that. Until a boy from your neighborhood picks up a football and throws it so far thousands of people notice. And thousands more will eat high on the hog because the proof of a person lies in their honor. And glory rests not in the moment, but extends itself in supplication.
Kari, thank you. That's so powerful. We talk about CAP has a food pantry network, and when you go out and you see parents really just doing the best they can to feed their children, we in Appalachia, 1 in 5 kids go hungry. In CAP service areas, 1 in 4. And you can't even really put your mind around that if you counted every 4 kids in a classroom, that one of those kids is going to go hungry or not know where they might get food, or parents are just doing their best to probably going hungry themselves to make sure their kids have something to eat. That is so powerful. And thank you for sharing that with us. And so glad to see that that cause has been taken up by the community and by other folks, not even from the area, because of what Joe did. And, that's a great testament to the power of using our own platform to spotlight other people's needs. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, he conducts himself in that way every day of his life, I think. Just a very good soul.
We've talked a lot about growing up Appalachian, writing your voice. What makes you proud to be from Appalachia?
Oh my gosh. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that question, and I don't even hardly know how to answer it other than I think more than proud, I just feel so grateful. I'm so grateful I had these wonderful grandparents. I'm grateful that, my parents had mental challenges. My daddy was a World War II veteran, and he was broken. And we found out, my mom later, we found out she had bipolar, but they loved me to pieces, and I was so lucky. And not everyone has that, and that I do have the ability to have pride in my culture, because our whole history has been a lot of hardworking people doing that hard work to pay it forward so the next generation could work a little less and maybe be considered a little more.
Yeah.
As in, we've all been working toward this day when we're not stereotyped and we're not considered less than or other, but that we're just like everyone else. We're just hardworking and we're trying to be good people. And the bragging part, I guess, would be that we have extra skills because of these old ways that we've been able to retain. We're not the only culture that has that, but I think I'm more grateful than anything.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, Kari, we have come to the end of our time together, and we always end with this question. The mission statement of Christian Appalachian Project is building hope, transforming lives, and sharing Christ's love through service in Appalachia. When you think of hope, transformation, love, and service, of these 4 words, which one do you think embodies the Appalachian spirit the most?
Oh gosh, love's in there, right? We love each other. We love to talk. We love the long goodbye. We love, and we love to work hard. We do. It's kind of crazy how we like to work, So I think we embody love, and we put love in everything we do too, I think.
Yeah, I love that, the long goodbye. That's you start in the doorway, and then you're on the porch, and then you're in the driveway, and then you've talked another hour. Kari, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh gosh, thank you. What a blessing this was. Thank you so much, Tina.
Our guest today was Kari Gunter-Seymour, a 9th generation Appalachian and the immediate past poet laureate of Ohio. You know the drill. We love this show. Thank you for listening. Catch new episodes every Tuesday and invite your friends to listen too. You can follow the work of Christian Appalachian Project on all social media channels. Find the show at christianapp.org/podcast or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. If you like the show, please take a quick second to click that follow button and leave a review so other people can find the show as well. Until next time, this is the Mountain Spirit. Keep listening, keep learning, and keep lifting up Appalachian voices.